welcome all to Connect with Kate, a place to learn, build, and grow together as a community. This is a holistic, all-encompassing show on self-help, self-love, self-care, and how to better your being to become the happiest version of you. Together, let's unite, discover, inspire, and most importantly, connect. Hi everyone, welcome to Connect with Kate. Today I have on with me the incredible Jaimie Alexander. Jaimie starred as Jessie on the TV series Kyle XY, Sif in the 2011 superhero film Thor, and since 2015 she starred in the NBC series Blindspot. So I met Jaimie in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and I instantly fell in love with her sweet nature and badass personality. She is the definition of cool, so welcome, Jaimie.
Thank you. What an awesome intro.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I was telling you earlier, I'm sweating a little bit because you are like such a badass, and it's an honor to have you on my show.
Oh, thank you. Well, no need to be sweaty or nervous. I am pretty average when it comes to, good conversation and chilling out.
Yeah, I like to show off in front of my mom and tell her who's gonna be on my show, and she's like, I'm so tired of hearing Jaimie's name, like, when am I gonna meet her?
I know, I can't believe I haven't met your mom yet. I as many times as I've been around members of your family, I've still yet to meet Jill, so I'm looking forward to that.
I know, I hate that. I think you guys will really get along.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you and I met in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and I just want to start off by asking you, what did you think of that whole experience?
Well, I had taken a night flight down to New Orleans after a fashion show, Christian Siriano fashion show. So I was actually on the plane dressed extremely glamorous. I just was so out of place. It was so funny. So that was the kickoff to that experience, which was pretty comical. And so I really loved it. I'd never been to Mardi Gras before. It was so much fun, and everybody was having such a great time, and it was fun to dress up and get to wear like a really cool cape and crown and that whole thing, and then of course to meet you and the rest of your family aside from Jill, and your family friends. It was just like a really positive experience for me.
Yeah, totally. It's always so different every year. I mean, it's the same events, but the different people that get to come just makes it so interesting. Did you have a favorite experience, like a specific moment out of the whole trip in particular that you just can't forget about?
I think it may have been just conversing with all of you guys. Like I was with you and your sisters and on the balcony with your dad and Paul and everybody, and it was just so much fun. It was a very relaxed yet extravagant experience, and I loved throwing the beads. I thought that was so much fun. I used to throw football all the time, so I was really chucking them pretty far, and by the next day my right arm felt like it was going to detach itself from my torso.
Yeah, it's a thing. I get really into it as well. I also have been on the other side of it and have been hit by a bag of beads, and it knocked me out. But my family, they think of me as always, being so dramatic and just overdoing everything. And so, of course, one Mardi Gras, I asked my dad, I was like, you have to take me to the hospital. And it's in the middle of, Mardi Gras. And I made him take me, and we got there, and they're like, you're fine, you don't have a concussion. I'm like, you're wrong. You need to check me again. And I was convinced. I've had concussions in the past, and they scare me. But yeah, I've been on the other end of it, and it for sure. There's, a bunch of drunk guys just, chucking these beads, and if it hits you, it hurts,
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Yeah, so I think my favorite experience, though, from Mardi Gras with you was going shopping on, I think it was on Magazine Street, and just
That's
kind of
right.
Right, yeah, it was kind of just watching you and seeing what you picked out, and I was like, wow, like, this is so cool because you have such great taste, and I love your sense of style.
Oh, thank you so much. I remember that now. That escaped my memory when we were just talking about Mardi Gras. I was thinking beads and nighttime, and I forgot we had such a fun day going out and shopping and going to different costume stores, and eating junk food and just, yeah, that was a blast. That was such a blast.
Yeah, it was so fun. So as I was doing research on you to prepare for this, I noticed you were born in Greenville, South Carolina, and I don't think we ever talked about this, but I went to Furman for a year and a half.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we definitely didn't talk about that. I was born in Greenville, South Carolina, but I never got to really experience Greenville. I believe I was carted off right after I was born to a different area in South Carolina, and then eventually, when I was very, very young, probably about 4, we moved to Texas. So consider Texas my home state just because that's where I spent most of my young life.
Right, and where in Texas did you grow up?
I grew up in Grapevine, right outside of Dallas, Texas.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my mom was born in Lubbock.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So I feel a strong connection to Texas. And then I also noticed you were born on the 12th. I was born on September 12th. And you're a Pisces. Are you into astrology or horoscopes at all?
I definitely am. I love that kind of stuff. I find that, we have this massive, just enormous sky with just billions of stars, and rarely do we ever look up and appreciate their beauty. And because this has been since the beginning of time, I believe that there are so many things we can learn from the sky in general, the planets, the stars, meteorites, asteroids, whatever you want to call it, weather, everything. So I've always been into that type of metaphysical side of astrology and astronomy.
And would you say the characteristics of a Pisces, does it make sense to you? Can you relate to those?
It can. I know that one of the major characteristics is a daydreamer, and I'm definitely a daydreamer. I'm a bit psychic, strangely. I have a very strong intuition, and I'm definitely more attached to the metaphysical world than the material world.
Right. And do you ever do any kind of like full moon or new moon ritual? Are you into that?
I haven't done those, although if somebody asked me to join theirs, I would be happy to do that. I do read oracle cards and tarot cards. I find that really fun. Again, with all these things, for me, it helps set an intention for the day, or it might bring something to my awareness that was buried. But again, I don't, if I ever went to a psychic and they told me what was going to happen in the future, I'd take it with a grain of salt, because our future is never set in stone. It's a compilation of decisions we've made in our life. So it's always able to change. We're always able to change the outcome of certain things by changing the input.
Totally. That's exactly how I feel. Like you're speaking exactly what I would say too with the cards, because I do the cards as well. Do you believe in manifestation? Are you a big manifester?
Yeah, I do believe in manifestation. I believe in the power of belief, of really believing in what you want. And I also agree that when you believe in something, if your intentions are pure and they're just and they're good, I believe that those things can come to fruition. I think if you've got a negative intention, that can just bring forth catastrophe. I do believe, people that think negatively often, it plays out in their life. And we've seen that, right? And it's all about perception and perspective. So I try to keep positive thoughts that are not far-fetched, but that are grounded in reality. But I try to really live from a positive space, because that's the type of life I want.
Yeah, totally. And it's incredible your career and how you started out and where you are now when it comes to not really having a background in acting. Because I asked you this in New Orleans. I wanted to know, as an aspiring actress myself, if you had done any kind of training, but you told me no. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I never had any formal training as an actress. I took what natural abilities I had and just kept learning by doing. And some people learn that way. Some people learn by reading textbooks and doing everything like by the book, so to speak. But for me, I've been blessed enough to get to learn as I go. And that's what I think life's all about anyway, is learning as we go. But I've been able to learn how to portray certain characters by using my strengths, which are sympathy, empathy, and compassion. So when I read a script and I identify with parts of a character, it's because I can sympathize with them and I can feel what it would feel like to be in their position. And so I use that empathy as a grounding force in the characters I play. That said, there have been a few times where I wish I did had a little bit of formal training, because it would be something a bit more concrete to fall back on. But I just don't. In reality, I just don't think I'm built that way. I'm built more as a dreamer and fly by the seat of the pants type of person.
Yeah, I really like that too, and that's inspiring for me to hear, because I go back and forth from wanting to be in school and then just wanting to do like real life experiences and go in the city and ask questions and network, and hearing that you didn't really have any formal training and you are where you are is just really inspiring. And I admire the hard work you've put into your career.
Thank you.
Yeah. So can you tell me too, what was it like filming your first movie? So when you got the leading role of Hannah in The Other Side?
Oh, well, that was a fun friend project. I was actually helping my buddy Greg cast his movie, and he wanted a reader, and so I said, "Oh, okay." I was waitressing back then. I would think I was about 18, and I just started reading with people to help him cast the parts. And then I was a bit young for the part, and but as time went by, he couldn't find anybody that he liked, and he thought, you know what, Jaimie, like, I'd actually like if you could do it. And so of course I did it for free. It was so much fun. We shot it in Atlanta. It was, again, learning by doing. I was just so hungry for any opportunity. I wanted to take any opportunity I could find to learn how to work as an actress, how to be on a set, how to withstand the crazy hours, like how to dig deeper than I thought possible, all those things. So my career has been full of baby steps. I never had a giant leap to one thing or another. It's always been baby steps. Each step, I landed in fully and experienced and moved forward to the next small step and then the next small step. And all those steps combined has made my career what it is today. And I'm really grateful for what I have.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. I didn't even know that. And what's been the most difficult role up until this point in your life that was kind of like a stretch for you?
Something that would have been a stretch for me. There was a movie I did in Morocco. It was a French movie, and it has two different names because of the language barrier. I think one is called Collision and the other is called Intersections. I was playing a character that I just could not identify with. And the reason I took it is because I wanted to know if I could actually play this character. And it was a woman who was full of, full of revenge. She had a desire to seek revenge. She used her sexuality to manipulate people. These are all things that I don't do, that I literally would be mortified and extremely uncomfortable in my real life doing. So I really couldn't understand how to use my body and my looks, quote unquote, and all that stuff to sort of make this character who she is. And so it was a struggle. And what they realized as they were filming the movie, they made an alternate ending, because what was happening was I was told, and I take this as a compliment, but it kind of bit me in the ass then, was that my camera presence was too strong to play this character. And the audience, as they were editing the movie along, everybody agreed that it just didn't make sense that my character would be a damsel in distress or this type of meek woman, in a sense. And that kind of bothered me, because I thought, well, I as an actress, I want to be able to morph into all these things. But what I naturally was, and something I naturally cannot change, is my energy. And my energy that was coming across on screen was, this girl would knock this guy out, or there would be some other smarter alternative to the way she was behaving. So they ended up writing in that, there was this sequence where I find a gun, and then I I stab somebody, I get stabbed. It was like this whole thing. And I thought, this is so weird, but this is what, as they're watching the movie cut together, they have been wanting so badly to see me do something like that. And I thought, if that's what the audience wants and that's what makes sense, then why don't we make that happen? So it was one of those things, where I would love the opportunity to sort of try again in that sense, but also I would never have cast myself in that movie. And so it was a great learning experience for me to try on something different and note that I didn't like it. I really didn't. I prefer the types of characters I play right now. I really love dark comedy. I had a really good time when I did Nurse Jackie. I would love to explore that more, but the character in collisions, intersections, I just could not find a common ground, and that's where some formal training may have helped me. But I, of course, didn't have that then or now.
Right. And then when you read the script, did you feel like you just couldn't relate, and a part of you was saying, not to do it, but for some reason you decided against that?
Absolutely. I did decide against it. My natural instincts were, this is not the project for you. And there were several other reasons behind that I won't discuss out of courtesy to the production, but there were things that I was like, this is not for me, but I wanted to take it anyway because I looked on the exterior of the project and thought, I'd love to travel to North Africa. I'd love this adventure. I would love a bit of a challenge. They dyed my hair blonde. It didn't work out. It actually burnt part of my hair, so we had to cut it all off, and it was like this strange light desert brown, which really actually worked with the movie's aesthetic. But there were just a lot of things that sort of went wrong throughout the production. And but again, like I said, it was such a good learning experience. And this is what life's about, right? We make choices, we make decisions, and we learn from them. And so I have no regrets in my life. I wouldn't go back and change that, but it was definitely something that I've carried with me throughout my life since then, about decision making and really trusting my intuition about certain projects.
Yeah, I feel like you have to go through it once to really determine, this isn't right, and your gut feeling is always correct. But yeah, I want to ask you more about Morocco, because my grandparents actually got married there, and it's one of the most special places in the world to me. So what was that like for you? Did you have a good experience with the people there and the food and the culture?
Oh, I did. I loved it there. I've been in quarantine lately. I've been thinking about my time that I spent there. I was there for several months, and all over the country. Crossed into Algeria a little bit. That was not as positive of an experience, but I really adored the Moroccan people, the culture, the kindness, the energy, the magic of the Sahara, all of it. It was just so incredible. And then towards the end of filming, we actually got to travel towards the coast, and we actually spent time in Essaouira, which was so beautiful. And it was just such a magical experience. And towards the end, I got to invite a friend of mine to come, my friend Emily, who's also my stylist. She came for the last 2 weeks, and we had such a good time, and it was such a rewarding experience. And I made a lot of new friends. So now I have a good amount of friends in Paris, which is fantastic. But I really just learned a lot, and I was able to sit peacefully outside every night because, again, we were in a Casbah, there were no TVs and none of that. And I would draw. I brought all my drawing materials. I would draw. I would eat peanuts like they were going out of style. And I would just look at the stars every night. It was just as though they were like dust. There were so many of them. And I thought, I am somewhere special. Like, I need to remember this moment for the rest of my life. And I have, and I just have always, I've always wanted to return there. So that's something, I guess you could say, that I am manifesting for my future.
Yeah, totally. And I can relate to a lot of that because I've been there, I think, 3 times now. Did you get a chance to try their Moroccan mint tea?
Oh yeah, I loved it. They would call that Berber whiskey, and yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, it's like crack. It's
so good.
Oh my God. And then we would like have competitions as a family, like who can pour the highest.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was basically just me doing it. So it was like no one really was competing with me. But I was so proud of it, and I would show everyone. But it's so good. Like I'm obsessed. I want to go back just for that.
Yeah, that stuff is pretty good.
Do you have a favorite place in the world that you've been through your career, through acting, that you've traveled to?
I mean, I have a couple. I would say in the United States, other than New York City, where I live, because I do really love New York City. Santa Fe, New Mexico is one of my most favorite places. I've shot 2 movies there, and I really love it. I really, really love it. And then I'd say outside of the United States, I really enjoyed Tokyo, Japan. I really, really liked it. It was just so different and so amazing, and I love Japanese food. I got to travel down to Kyoto, which was pretty special as well. I love Japanese fashion. I love the culture. I just find it all very fascinating. So I was really lucky that I got to go there back in 2018.
Yeah, I've never been. That's definitely on my bucket list. That sounds incredible. I also know, so we both tore our ACL. I feel connected to you in that way, but I read that you've had a few injuries. So can you tell me how those happened?
Sure. Well, some of the ones that I've had, most of them have come from Blindspot. I've had a concussion. I broke my nose by getting punched in the face during a fight scene. Dislocated my shoulder. I've broken the left side of my left foot a couple times. It's really once it's broken, like mine had broke, it's really easy to re-fracture it or re-break it, and it's just something you have to tape up. There's no real way to heal it other than that, and you're supposed to stay off of it. But of course, as I was shooting the series, I couldn't, so I just kept I kept screwing it up. I did tear my ACL and my MCL and had surgery on that. And then I, unfortunately, and right after I met you in Mardi Gras in 2018, my appendix ruptured and it went septic, which is very deadly. And this was like a huge wake up call for me because I was at work and I ignored the pain, and I kept ignoring the pain and ignoring the pain, thinking I ate something weird. And I was supposed to get off work that day by like 3 or 4 p.m., which never happened. And I was so excited. And I just kept ignoring the pain. And this is something where this is a really good lesson to really get in touch with your body and listen to your body, because my body was trying to tell me something is very wrong. And by midday, I could barely stand up. And I realized, like, this is way more serious than food poisoning or something else. So I got rushed to the ER. And when I got there, they did a couple blood tests and then immediately put me in a CT scanner because I was screaming. It was the worst. It was like incredibly flooring contractions. Like I've never felt pain like that. And I've been through some painful stuff, and I've never experienced something like that. And when they came and told me that my appendix, it was leaking, it had opened, it had burst, and that I was going to need emergency surgery right away, I got really scared. And I was, by this point, I was hallucinating a little bit. Like I remember not really understanding where I was, but I knew that something bad was happening. And then all of a sudden, like, I started praying, and I've never been a religious person. I've been spiritual for sure, but I really, like, I just came in contact with something much higher than myself and was like, I think I'm going to die. Like I knew if they didn't do the operation, I was going to die. And I could feel it. And my body was extremely hot. I was just, I was suffering big time. I didn't have any family present or anything. And so I went into surgery, and right before I went into surgery, I started talking with whatever it is. You can say God, higher power, universe, Mother Earth, whatever, I don't know. And I said, if I wake up, I promise I'll change my life. Like, I promise I'll be healthier. And I also said, I promise I'll never drink again. And when I woke up from the surgery, my body was cold, and I felt the infection had left. And I started crying. I was so happy to be alive. And I was like, I chose to stay here, so I'm going to have to follow up on those commitments that I made a promise about. And so that's when I got sober.
Wow. I mean, there's so much to say to that. I was sweating at the beginning of this and now I have chills. Like that's insane. So what was that experience like with the higher power? Did you visually see anyone? Did you hear anything? I mean, that's just incredible. Tell me more.
I didn't see or hear anything. It was more just an inner peace, like an inner knowing, and it was a familiar feeling, which and that's the most I can say about it. I to this day, I'm just I suppose you can sum it up in one word, would be the word awe. It was just awe. Like, it was awe everything. I was in a state of, I felt completely peaceful. The pain had subsided, and that wasn't from the pain medicine, because that wasn't working. They do say when your appendix bursts, it's worse than childbirth. I just felt like that was the moment where either I was going to die or I was going to live. And I could feel it. I could feel I was like in this middle zone of not sure which way I should go. And I remember in my mind saying, or just quietly to myself, but not verbalizing, but internally saying, I am not ready to go yet. And I said, there's still more I can do, but if I'm going to stay, I have to change some of my behaviors, because what happens when you're working so many hours and you're doing something as physical as I was doing, you have to keep yourself square. You have to keep yourself healthy. You have to keep yourself grounded. You have to find time to be peaceful and to rest and regenerate and recuperate and replenish yourself. And those were things I wasn't doing. I literally could not find the time to do it because I was working so much. And what was happening was I would have a hard time falling asleep, and I was only afforded about 6 hours a night of sleep because of my schedule. And so I would drink bourbon to fall asleep. And it became a habit, a really bad habit, and to the point where I almost needed it to function for everything. I never drank it at work while I was working. I would drink when I was removing the tattoos because it was the end of the day, and I never drove to or from work. I had a transportation provided. So when I noticed that became a thing, I realized, if I can't even wait to get home, and in a group, we'd all have a drink at the end of the night sometimes. It wasn't, me swigging it behind closed doors or anything, but still the fact that I couldn't even wait to get home, which was 10 minutes away, to have a drink clearly meant something was happening to my system. I was becoming addicted to this thing, and I couldn't function without it. I couldn't fall asleep without it. I couldn't relax without it. I couldn't, a lot of the interviews I did, I'd have a couple shots in my system. Nobody could tell. I never slurred my speech. I never screwed up. I never did anything promiscuous. I was very much a high functioning and in control alcoholic. And when my health started to deteriorate even more, I realized I'm not helping myself by doing this. In fact, I did the opposite, thinking that I was doing the right thing, as messed up as that is. So when I got out of the hospital after the appendix, a couple weeks after, because when they cut your stomach open like that, it takes you a minute to be able to do anything or walk. But I went and got myself into the program, and I've been in there ever since, and it's changed my life. It's changed everything for me in the best way, and so I'm one of those people that is a very grateful alcoholic.
Wow, I appreciate you so much for saying that and for being so open, because I know so many people struggle with that in the world. There's substance abuse, and it can creep up on you, and I'm really, interested in health and wellness and self-care. That's a huge reason I'm doing this podcast, to help me, to help others. And since you made that, huge transition and adjustment, obviously before quarantine, what was every day like for you? Like, what was your schedule? How did you change your everyday versus, what you used to do?
Well, before quarantine, I was, of course, going to meetings, like work meetings, and traveling and events, and, the typical actress stuff. But I was also, I was trying to find ways to heal my system, because after I got my appendix out back in 2018, it took my body about a year to rebalance itself. I was sick a lot. Like, I would eat something and vomit, or I would get these rashes all over my body. Like, my organs were still trying to clean themselves out from some of the toxic stuff that went into them, as my guess. And then, of course, I injured my knee. And all the while I was shooting Blindspot. So my routine in my daily life was heavily dictated by that show, and I spent most of my waking hours there. So so I didn't really have a solid routine that I loved because I had so many things going on. So once that ended in November, we finished season 5, the final season of the series. I just started taking myself on adventures and that sort of thing, traveling and spending time with people that I couldn't do beforehand, you know, like actually going to dinner with people or cooking food for people. I love cooking. So fast forward into quarantine, I'm actually quarantining alone in Brooklyn, and it's forced me to spend time with myself, to mother myself in that sense. Instead of taking care of everybody else around me, I'm being forced to just take care of myself because I literally can't go take care of anybody. It's against the rules at the moment. So getting to know myself, finding my center, all these things I thought, you know, I'd always wanted, but didn't really know how to do. I was like, how do I do this? Okay, fine, I'll meditate, or I'll go to yoga, or I'll do this, or I'll do what this person says. And really the goal, I think, is to find out what you want to do, not what other people are suggesting for you to do to make X, Y, and Z better. It's like, go inside yourself and really sit with yourself and say, what do I like? What kind of foods do I like? What kind of activity do I like? What makes me feel good? What makes me fall asleep in a great state of mind at the end of the night? What do I like to wake up to? And I started doing that almost by accident while in quarantine, and I've built on that. So I've switched back to being a vegetarian. I tend to operate better that way. And I've been cooking a lot. I've been drawing. I haven't drawn in about 10 years. I just put it on the back burner, and that's something I've been doing, which I love. I've been reading a lot of books. I forgot how much I love to read. So I've been reading a lot of books and all of that kind of stuff. So those are the things that I am discovering about myself, or rediscovering, that I love so much. And all of it is summed up into just a very peaceful existence, a very calm and peaceful existence. And I realize I'm a bit more introverted than I thought, which is lovely. So I'm learning stuff about myself that it's just the icing on the cake for getting to have a second chance at life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And is there anything you must do daily that you hold yourself accountable for, that kind of resets or recenters you?
Well, for me, as an alcoholic, the program is a daily thing for me. And and then on a funnier note, coffee, every morning coffee with some coconut milk, or, you know, some MCTs in there. I try to make sure I eat well every day. I pray in the mornings. I set an intention for the day. I think that's really a positive thing to do. It's basically my form of meditation. Something that a lot of people ask me, I come across very confident, which I do try to embody in confidence, and I do try to express my gratitude for what I am and who I am, and the things that I've been able to gain in my lifetime. And a lot of people struggle with body image, myself included, absolutely, like 1000%. And so something I've started doing, and it's not just every day, but it is weekly, is that I will force myself to sit down and handwrite 10 things that I love about myself physically and 10 things that I love about myself non-physically. And those things, they can, and trust me, in certain days, it's hard. It's hard to come up with those 10 things on either side. It could literally, you could have painted your nails pink and just really liked those. Go ahead and write that down. It can be as simple as, I love my left nostril. I mean, I don't know. It can be that simple. But when you start doing that, you start giving yourself some love. And self-love is something that I practice every single day, because unless I love myself, I can't love anybody else. I mean, geez, like I'm such a love bug, and I want to give all that I am to people. But if I'm only at 30%, like, that's not beneficial for anybody. Like giving 30% of myself to somebody, that's not beneficial. It's not beneficial for me or them. So practicing self-love and gratitude is a huge thing for me that I do on the daily, so that I can show up first for myself and then for others.
That's so inspiring. I love that you do that. Is there something you're most confident in, whether it's, a personality trait or a feature? Because I think it's okay to, say what you love about yourself. Like, what is it about you that, I can tell you 100 things I love about you, but is there something in particular that you're really proud of?
I'd say, lately, something that I'm really grateful for and that I'm really, really, really proud of finding in myself is my self-awareness. I'm very aware of how I feel, what I might be projecting onto other people or creating a narrative about other people due to my own feelings. I'm aware of that tendency. And self-awareness for me comes from being rigorously honest. You can be dishonest with everybody around you, but if you are dishonest with yourself, you can't do that. It's destructive. So I will call myself out a lot of times, like if I think I've made a mistake, or if I realize, and it's really hard because I find that humility is the absence of ego. I've always said that. So if you can remain humble, and that doesn't mean putting yourself down. A lot of people get that confused. Humility is gratitude, is saying, you know what, like I don't have all the answers, but I'm so willing to learn, to progress my life, and to be, for me, the best woman that I can be. And that starts with love and all those things. So I'm really grateful that I have become so self-aware and that I work at that. And that I know that I don't know everything, and I'm eager to learn.
Thank you for sharing that. And at any point, did you want to quit the show, Blindspot? What was it that made you kind of persevere through the injuries and continue working?
I think with any job, sometimes, I say this, too much of anything is too much. You could say, oh, I had a lot of broccoli. I had too much. Well, too much broccoli is too much broccoli. It's going to make you sick. It's going to make you feel bad. The show for me, I had a lot of struggles personally with the show. I was working hours that, I could barely stand up certain days. I ended up in the hospital a lot. I went through some things on that show that were really rough that I wouldn't want anybody else to go through. However, they've made me who I am today, and I have learned so much from those experiences, and I have no regrets. As hard as that show was at times, I have absolutely no regrets, and I was so and I am still so grateful I was given the opportunity to make a show that so many people enjoyed and that inspired people. And I do believe we go through things in life on purpose, and those things will repeat themselves until we've learned the lessons that we need to learn from them. And so I found, I found what I was made of, that's for sure. I found that I'm a lot stronger than I thought. And I found that I needed to improve on a lot of things, like setting boundaries. And I would never have learned those things without my experience on that show.
That's really powerful. And would you say you're as religious now as you are spiritual after what happened in your encounter with a higher power?
I would say in terms of the way we define religion nowadays, I'm not religious. I don't identify as a, I guess you could say, as a Christian, or, whatever category you want to put that into. I find my connection with God, my spirituality, undefinable, because it has no limitation. And I really just, I center myself and go through my heart to reach God. And I find that to be the most powerful connection I have in my life. And I personally do not feel I need something physical to gain that, like a church or like a place of worship. That place of worship is absolutely just in my heart and in my center.
Great answer. And to wrap things up, I want to know a little bit more about your quarantine adventure. I know you're by yourself now in Brooklyn, but tell me about your cross-country road trip experience.
Sure. Well, I was in Los Angeles, and I was going to some premieres and the whole thing, and all of a sudden all my jobs started getting canceled, which is no surprise given the state of the world at the moment. And so I thought, oh no, I have all this time that just freed up. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to rent a car and I'm just going to drive back to New York. Like I really could use some time with myself, and I would love to be in nature. And I found that that was a very creative way to get back home. And I stayed very off grid, no hotels. I wouldn't even go into gas stations to go to the bathroom. I would literally pull over on the side of the road, find a bush, and hide behind it, you know, let things happen as they do. But I made my way across the U.S. And it was wonderful. I really loved it. But a few days into that trip, the lockdown happened. So that hadn't happened yet when I left, or I probably would have flown back to New York, because I wanted to be responsible and stay home like we were being asked to. It's just that I was not home. I was in the middle of the United States, in the middle of nowhere. So I continued my journey, and I finally got back to Brooklyn, and I stayed put. But it was beautiful, you know. Like, I stopped in Santa Fe and got to, you know, of course, see 1,000,002 stars in the sky, and I just, yeah, it was a really lovely time for me, and I'm glad that I was able to do it before I got back to Brooklyn and had to stay put, because I am definitely a person who loves to travel. I love adventure, so I'm glad I got it out of my system in a way before I had to stay in one place.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I love how you engage too with all your fans on Instagram, and we're asking for everyone's favorite songs and making a playlist. That was really cool.
Oh, heck yeah. I love connecting with people, you know, and I you know, I have so much empathy within my heart, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard life can be. I grew up extremely poor. I had a rough upbringing. Like, I've gone through enough in my life to understand human despair and sorrow and heartache. And I know that even when things are going top notch, you know, you can't have light without the dark. If we didn't have darkness, we couldn't recognize the light. I mean, that's just how it is. And everything's in balance. That's the yin yang, right? So when I reach out to people on Instagram, I genuinely want to know how everybody is doing. I want to put out there that I'm thinking of these people, and that I am putting them in my heart and in my thoughts and in my prayers, because I think that's what's needed. You know, we're all connected to the same thing. We all are the same in so many ways. And I think it's a better place when you can realize that, instead of focusing on what makes us different.
That's so cool. You're so real and just genuine. And I loved you before. I love you even more now. You're such a light. I feel like I personally have good intuition, and I can kind of tell, you know, who I click with, you know, within the first few seconds of meeting someone. And I knew right away when I met you that, you know, you're such a positive person. You have such great energy. So I want to thank you. Before we sign off as well, I have to mention my cousin Colin. He's 9 years old. I've mentioned him to you before, but I gave him a call before we started the podcast, and I was like, you won't believe who I'm having on today. And he was so excited. So I told him I'd mention his name this episode.
Oh, well, hey out there. I'll have to shoot him a little video and send it to you or something.
That would be so cool.
I sure will.
Yeah, he's in New Orleans with the cousins, and yeah, so I thought I'd mention his name.
Oh, well, you're a good cousin.
Thank you. I got to try. But yeah, Jaimie, thank you so much for everything you shared. You could not have been more genuine and open and honest, and just, you're a beautiful soul. So thank you so much for being on today.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.